So good afternoon to some, good morning to others. Welcome, and good evening to some too. Welcome back to our second class on our book, Forgiveness in Jesus. Today, hopefully we'll actually start reading some of the stuff that Ken wrote about his relationship with Jesus and how he's trying to do here, and we went over this in depth in last night's class, which is up for replay. Is Ken really approached this book from the point of view that his most important, most significant thing in his life was when he realized he had a relationship with Jesus. It'd always been there, but it was only until he was about 31 that he realized he was having it and what that meant, and how safe he felt in that, and that Jesus was never going to leave him. And we talked about those kind of experiences that Ken was having about the age of 31, at the same time that he met Helen and came across A Course in Miracles. But the impetus for this book was really his relationship with Jesus, and how was he going to present that, especially in the context of A Course in Miracles, to the people that were beginning to come to him, to listen to him talk about the Course, and to listen to him talk about the Jesus of the Course. So he breaks down this book, and he approaches this in 4 ways. There's 4 parts in the book. If you have a book, and your book might be a little different than mine, we discovered last night. Of course, I have the Holy Book. You might have an older version, not so holy. But on my book, in page 9 in the introduction, at the bottom, he starts talking about the 4 parts of the book. And basically on this page and the next page, at least in my book, he's going to describe those 4 parts. The first part is really the metaphysics of the Course, especially the dynamics of the ego, how the Course talks about guilt, and then finally what forgiveness really means in terms of A Course in Miracles. Second part of the book, he compares the Course specifically with the well-known teachings of Jesus, comparing the two in the New Testament. So he's comparing the Course with the teachings of Jesus in the New Testament. And then finally, the third part of the book is all about, he calls it apostleship. What does it mean to be an apostle of Jesus? What does it mean to be a disciple of Jesus? What the phrase Lynn's been using lately is, what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus? Not really a follower. I mean, all the time we're walking hand in hand with him, strangers on the road. But the gist of it is, what does it mean to allow Jesus to be our teacher, our guide, our friend? And then finally, the fourth part of the book is all about the importance of having this quote unquote person of Jesus in our lives today. What a relationship with Jesus should look like, might look like, could look like in our lives as we're seemingly moving through a world of time and space. So first part is metaphysics of the Course. Second part is comparing the Course with the New Testament teachings in the Bible. Third part is discipleship, following Jesus. And then the fourth part is the importance of having this person in a relationship, in a very real active relationship in our lives today. So that's the way Jesus approaches presenting the Course, and certainly his relationship with Jesus, which was the most profound thing that he has had happen up to this point in his life, realizing he did already have a relationship with Jesus, presenting that to people that were Catholic at first, and then as Jews started coming, presenting that to them so that they could understand it from his point of view, a Jew himself. So how's my sound? That's what I wanted to ask. Okay, good, very good. So I want to do, and since this book is all about Jesus, and certainly it's a way Ken chose to present his relationship with Jesus to the Course community and ultimately to the world, we want to invite Jesus into this class. We want to invite him into our awareness as we're doing this class, Want to look at workbook lesson 221. Lesson 221 in the workbook, and it's on page 402, page 402 in the workbook. One of the things I don't think I pointed out when I was talking about pronouns in the course, the way Jesus uses pronouns. He uses the word I a lot, uses the word you a lot, it doesn't usually talk about them and what they should do. But first person singular, the I, he puts that in every title of every lesson. Well, almost every lesson. Every now and then, the lesson is a statement, like miracles are seen in light. But and certainly in all these 200 lessons, it's always talking about I, me, mine. What's my responsibility in all this? For example, lesson 221, the title, Peace to, not the other guy's mind, not even to our mind, but peace to my mind. This course is for me to work. Let all my thoughts be still. Lesson 222, God is with me, I live and move in him. God is my life. Lesson 223, I have no life but his. So the focus is really on taking responsibility for this process inside of us internally. Each of us has that responsibility. And I think that's what all the titles in the entire workbook are really pointing to. This is my job. This is my function. This is what I need to learn. Seemingly as an individual, and eventually that awareness of that we're truly all one will eventually sink in. But I start with the seeming me that's doing this, that's holding the book in my hands, and work the steps of forgiveness so I can get to that realization that we are still all one Son of God. So in these lessons from 221 on, it's always, for the most part, until you get to the end, it's broken into two parts. There's the prayer in italics. And the prayer in italics, as far as I can tell, except for maybe one or two cases, it's always in I, first person singular, and it's I addressing my Father, specifically my Father. Father's in, as far as I can tell, is in every one of those lessons, those prayers in italics. So for example, and sometimes he switches them up. Sometimes the italics prayer comes first, and then the next paragraph is in non-italics. But those prayers that are in italics, whether they come first or second, are always I addressing my Father, praying to my Father. So for example, in this case, in lesson 221, first paragraph, Father, I come to you today to seek the peace that you alone can give. And then the second paragraph, that changes up sometimes. Sometimes it's Jesus speaking to me, which is what I think it is in that paragraph. Sometimes, for example, in lesson 222, the non-italics paragraph comes first, and sometimes it's me just talking to me. God is with me. This is lesson 222, the first paragraph. God is with me. He is my source of life, the life within me. It's almost like I'm telling me what's really going on. So that paragraph's me to me. But I think in lesson 221 above, the second paragraph, now do we wait in quiet? Jesus is inviting us to do that with him. Line 4, accept my confidence, for it is yours. So this is really an invitation from Jesus to us that we're to do this together. And sometimes the paragraphs that are not in italics are, I think, Jesus speaking directly to us. Sometimes they're not. Is that clear? Do you have any questions about that at all? Anybody want to fight about that this morning or this afternoon? Nobody's fighting today. David Delaplane, you all right? You're all right with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
If David's all right with it, we're really all right with it. Okay, good. Thanks, David.
Yeah, I get the feeling all the time that it's my elder brother, Jesus, putting all this together for me to walk with him.
Mm-hmm. Kind of is, and yeah, That's a good way to look at it. David, while you're on a roll, you want to read that first lesson 221, and then we'll get quiet for a little bit.
Sure. Peace to my mind. Let all my thoughts be still. Father, I come to you today to seek the peace that you alone can give. I come in silence, and in the quiet of my heart, the deep recesses of my mind, I wait and listen for your voice. My Father, speak to me today. I come to hear your voice in silence and in certainty and love. Sure, you will hear my call and answer me. Now do we wait in quiet. God is here because we wait together. I am sure that he will speak to you and you will hear. Accept my confidence, for it is yours. Our minds are joined. We wait with one intent, to hear our Father's answer to our call, to let our thoughts be still and find his peace, to hear him speak to us of what we are, and to reveal himself unto his Son.
Thanks, David. We'll get quiet for a little bit and allow that presence of Jesus to surround us and be in our own awareness. And gently come back. Alrighty, let's look at the book, Forgiveness in Jesus. So I go to page 14. And this is the last paragraph, at least in my book, to the introduction. And Ken starts talking about Freud here and how important Freud is to A Course in Miracles. And here, I think he does say it, but in other places, he certainly has said that without Freud, there would not have been A Course in Miracles. Without this idea of projection, without this idea, we have this unconscious darkness going on inside of us, and that we're constantly projecting that out. That's part of the fundamental metaphysics of the Course. The good news with the Course that Freud did not get to is that is not real either. That unconscious darkness is not real. That's as equally made up as all this is made up. So he points that out in this paragraph. I'll go through it probably line by line, just in case you have any questions or thoughts. So I'm on page 14. This is the second full paragraph on page 14. In the last part of the intro, at least in my book, it's paragraph 2, and it starts, it is ironic that Freud's brilliant analysis of the psyche's functioning can be used to enhance one's spiritual growth. Throughout Freud's life, Freud relentlessly pursued the idea that all religious experience and belief were neurotic at best, psychotic at worst, being nothing but projections of repressed infantile conflicts. Freud was not big on spirituality. Freud was not big on people running around praying to Jesus or God. He thought it was pretty neurotic, actually. So, oh well, poor Freud. If he only knew. And then Ken continues his own theory. Freud's own theory, however, would teach us that one never strives so hard against something unless one were correspondingly attracted to it, even if that attraction remained out of awareness. So, I mean, this is more than points to chapter 19, where Jesus tells us we're really attracted to some really terrible stuff, and we don't know it. It's just below our conscious level. We're attracted to sin. We're attracted to guilt. We're attracted to suffering. We're attracted to pain. We're attracted to death. I mean, and that's what Freud laid down this foundation, that the things that sometimes that we consciously think we're running after just underneath the surface, you know, it's the exact opposite. It looks like we're running around trying to stay alive, and obviously it does. It looks like we're grieving when our loved ones die, and obviously we do. But just underneath the surface, he's pointing to there's this other thing going on where you're actually attracted to the very thing that you think you abhor, that you think you don't want. So whether you agree with that or not, certainly that's the metaphysics of the Course, and that's certainly what chapter 19 is all about. We're not really afraid of death, we're attracted to it. We're not really afraid of pain and suffering, we're attracted to those things. And Jesus really takes each of those apart one by one and points out the how and why of that in chapter 19. It's a rough chapter. Nobody wants to look at that stuff. That's why we came here as bodies, to avoid admitting this whole wrong-minded thing is what's going on. So I'm on the sentence. One might conclude that Freud's whole theoretical system was designed on one level to defend against the threat he felt from his own powerful spirituality. That's interesting too. His insistency that running after anything spiritual was neurotic was just one way to defend himself, Freud, from Jesus. Ken was really emphatic in the preface, I think it was in preface or at least in the intro, that he realized, when he realized he did have a relationship at 31 years old, that he realized and had that awakening that he had always had a relationship with Jesus. He realized he spent those first 30 years running from Jesus. So, you know, what Ken is suggesting here, that Freud defended himself from a right-minded thought system, from having a figure like Jesus influence him and show him there was a way out of this unconscious darkness. He defended himself against that, the way we all do. We don't want to know there's a way out. Our egos don't want to know. Part of us that's right-minded obviously wants to know, but that's not the problem. It's the part of us that does not want to know there's a way out. And so we constantly shut ourselves off to that awareness. So that's what he's saying there. Freud did the same thing. What else is new? And then he goes on, thus, Freud strove to believe that the material world was the only reality, and so his thought system became the veil behind which the life of the spirit lay hidden. However, given a different purpose, Freud's systematized description of the dynamics of the ego can serve as a powerful tool to release ourselves from the imprisonment of guilt and fear. Guilt and fear, the ego's major weapons in its war against God. Once again, that's chapter 23 in the Course. Moreover, it is fair to say that without Freud, there would not have been a Course in Miracles. Therefore, though not able to help us understand the God we seek, psychology, especially Freudian psychology, may be extremely helpful in removing the barriers that interfere with our movement towards God. It can become an important means that God uses to lead us closer to the ultimate truth about who we really are and who He is, who our Creator truly is. Any thoughts or questions or ideas about any of that? Alrighty. So where Ken's going to pick up in chapter 1 is pretty much a description of the chart. The 2 levels of guilt. The guilt that we think we're aware of in the world, what other people are doing to us, and sometimes our own personal guilt as a stick figure in the dream. And then the other level of guilt, where all this guilt is coming from as a distraction, so we don't see what the real source of guilt is the guilt in the mind. Interesting enough, and as you read through this, so I want you to be on alert, mind alert. Because he doesn't talk about, as far as I can figure, I think he only, in this first section on guilt, he only mentions the mind twice, which is, I don't know if you realize, and who knows, maybe I don't know. I don't know if he thought talking about mind at this point to a bunch of Catholics and Jewish psychologists may not have been a good idea about what mind meant, because he doesn't really develop that in this section, at least in the beginning. He might, I can't imagine he won't later, but we'll see. But just look for how often he does or doesn't use the word mind when he's discussing this topic of guilt in this section particularly, where he's laying down these fundamentals about the metaphysics of the Course and the dynamics of the ego. As far as I could tell, in these opening sections, he's only used the word mind twice. In the Course, it's in the Course, of course, 2,000 times. In 1984, I don't think Ken had a chart yet. I don't know when he came up with the chart. I'm guessing late 80s, but I don't know that either, in case anybody knows. But I think the chart came as a response to this confusion about these levels, what Jesus meant by the mind and what he did not mean by the mind. He did not mean brain. And Ken got real, by the time I made it to the foundation in the early 1990s, Ken was real clear about this, and he was real clear about where the guilt was in the mind, and it was not about anybody's behavioral guilt, yours or mine. That was just a distraction from the real source of guilt. So as we go through this, look for the word mind. See if you can find it more than I did. All righty. Charlotte, you want to read that first paragraph on my page 15. Is it page 15 in your book, Charlotte, or do you have a book?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I have the very first book and it's not in mine. Just wanted to let you know. This is the first book of Ken's. Well, it was his first book and it was mine too.
Way back when.
I'm so glad you're doing it.
All right.
Okay. The dynamics of the ego. The world of guilt, 2 levels. Although psychologists may differ in their understanding of its etymology.
Yeah, I had to look that up. It just simply means what are the causes of a psychological conditions. I guess Amy could have told me that, but I looked it up first.
Dynamics or descriptive terms. Practically all would agree that the central life issue confronting people is the problem of guilt. Associated with our experience of ourselves as physical and psychological beings, guilt may be vicariously described as self-hatred and self-doubt, a gnawing awareness of inferiority and insecurity, feelings of incompletion, unfulfillment, lack, and a belief in one's personal failure before oneself, others, and God.
Any comments about that, Charlotte?
No, I think it's just, we're back to guilt.
That's
A lot of guilt.
That's good. That's a good way to put it. Thanks, Charlotte. So, is that true today? Do most psychologists believe that the central issue in all this stuff is guilt? I mean, does anybody, up with current psychological choices? Amy?
I don't know if I'm up with current psychological opinions, but it certainly would be my experience as a therapist that whole paragraph is accurate.
I was curious about that. I thought maybe they moved into something else. Okay, good. Thanks, Amy. All right. All righty. Amy, you want to read that second paragraph while you're at it?
Sure.
Please.
Each of us is more than familiar with feeling guilty over things in our past. The history of our individual lives can be seen from this point of view to be a litany to our guilt over what we have done or not done, said or not said, thought or not thought. We feel guilty because we picked on our younger sibling. We were caught stealing candy from the neighborhood store, cut school to go fishing or watch a baseball game, or were punished by the teacher for talking in class or not doing homework. As adults, we feel guilty for being unkind to someone in need, having lost our temper, cheating on our income taxes, not being faithful to the commandments, failing to perform prescribed religious rituals, or for harboring sexual feelings towards people forbidden by standards of morality.
Comments, Amy?
Yeah, that reminds me of the grab, what is Ken? The grab bag of guilt or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, pick your guilt. You know? I've been doing a lot of listening of Byron Katie and her stuff. And one of the things that she says that I really, really like is there's no new thoughts, right? And so I look at this and I'm like, yep, I mean, all of us could say something, you know, would have these similar forms or different forms, but same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's no new guilt. What do you mean? My guilt's different than your guilt. What do you mean there's no new guilt? No new guilt. It's not only a grab bag of guilt, it's all the same old guilt. It just keeps resurfacing and recycling. Recycled guilt. That's good, Amy, thanks. Oh, I love it when he calls it my story. Tim's story is a litany to my guilt. Well, I never describe myself that way. Maybe these days I do, but a litany to my guilt. I was raised Catholic, so, you know, the litanies were huge Catholic services where you worshiped and you burned incense. The litany was quite the prayer service, a prayer service to my guilt. Yeah, all righty. Tony, you want to read that next paragraph?
Sure. The list is endless, yet despite the pain such memories and experiences leave in their wake, they are merely the tip of the iceberg. These specific instances for which we feel guilty reflect a much deeper and more generalized experience of unworthiness and inadequacy. Just as the greater bulk of the iceberg lies beneath the surface of the sea, so does this experience of guilt lie beneath the surface line that divides our conscious from our unconscious minds. It is a feeling so deeply rooted that we believe there is no way we could be free of it, for not even God himself would have the power or desire to redeem us from this permanent burden of guilt.
Anything, Tony?
Just that, yeah, I mean, we don't know it because it's there, but then it, you know, it shows up through our projections, and that's the only way we know. So, you know, that's what's the beauty of the course, to help us to see that there is something there, because we forgot it. We don't realize that it's there. It's hidden.
All right.
We all have it. Nobody is exempt.
Great. You turned your camera off too.
Oh, sorry. I'm having issues today.
It's all right.
I'm not going to feel guilty.
Oh, good. Oh, there's other things you can grab. He does mention mind there, though. In fact, he's got a whole huge seminar that he did when he made it to Temecula on unconscious guilt in the unconscious mind. It's got a big iceberg on the cover. It's one of my favorite seminars that he did, for sure. Yeah. Thanks, Tony. Let's see. Asmani, you want to read a paragraph? Did you get your holy book today, Asmani, or yesterday?
No, blame Amazon and and a Spanish library for not having a good, English
Oh.
catalog of books. So sorry, I don't have it. Comes on Saturday.
Okay. Amazon and the Spanish libraries, they're to blame.
Exactly.
They're the guilty ones. All right, got
Definitely.
it. Thanks. Maya, you want to read?
You bet.
All right.
All right. Are we on the next page, page 16?
It is in my book.
I'm with you. I got the same book.
Okay.
Where does the guilt come from? The Course's explanation for the ultimate origin of our guilt provides a larger metaphysical context for the psychological principles we are discussing, without which the basic meaning of guilt and its undoing through forgiveness could not be understood. It therefore warrants some discussion before we continue.
Why don't you read one more, please?
Sure. Guilt arises from sin, which the Course defines at one point as lack of love, the post-separation condition. Sin is the belief that we can and have indeed separated ourselves from our Creator, who is love. In this sense, the Course's view would be equivalent to the Judeo-Christian understanding of original sin, when the thought of separation crept into the mind of God's Son. It is the seeming reality of the separation which makes the ego or false self that stands in opposition to the self, which God created one with him. Guilt tells us we have sinned, and therefore it establishes sin's reality. The ego, which is this belief in a separated self, now protects itself by projecting this original thought of separation, giving rise to a world of form that seems to exist apart from the split mind that thought it. As the Course states, you do not realize the magnitude of that one error of separation. It was so vast and so completely incredible that from it, a world of total unreality had to emerge. What else could come of it? The world was the first projection of error outward. The world arose to hide it, the error of separation, and became the screen on which it was projected and drawn between you and the truth.
Anything, Maya?
Yeah, a couple quick things. One is, if it was true, we'd be in deep trouble.
Ooh. Ooh.
And the thing is that it's very, very, very easy to be seduced by ego into believing it is true. And that, I think there's the rub, there's the real problem, is that there's a major part of me that really believes that I am so guilty. It's just unbelievable. So that's the horror of it. So I like to think, but we made it all up, ha ha ha, lightness and air, right? But I certainly have felt for a very long time this tremendous penetrating burden, of unremitting guilt on every level I can imagine. The other thing, so what I like to joke, I've always joked for years about that I have guilt written on my forehead, and I'm the queen of guilt. But so what I would say is that's special, huh? But what I would say is guilt, the gift that keeps on giving.
The ever ready bunny of guilt. Yeah, very good. Thanks. Anybody have anything else? There's another mind in that paragraph. I missed that one. Ken wasn't as bad as I thought he was. Go ahead, Stephen, then Dave.
I can't help but think today, we start teaching this really, really early. But for my first communion, I had to go to confession. And went to confession in the dark booth with the man I couldn't see. And my confession was 2 sins. That was, I lost my brown shoe and I didn't eat my mashed potatoes. The priest said, say 3 Hail Marys and 3 Our Fathers. Instead of saying, my dear boy, those aren't sins. So, just generally, we start teaching this from the get. I mean, probably when we're 3 to 5 and we learn the most, that's when we start learning about guilt. Because I didn't blink either. I went and said those things, and I thought I did something terrible. Thank you.
Wow. Thanks. That was good. What was I guilty about at 5 years old? Probably everything. Every time my dad yelled at me, I was just guilty. Wow. Wow. Dave Van Dyke. Oh, you're on mute now, Dave.
Oh, okay. I was just thinking when Maya was talking, she said that the guilt was the gift that kept on giving. I was thinking, no, guilt is the gift that keeps on taking.
Ooh, that's good too.
Grinding those nerves. So, yeah.
Very good. All right. We're on a roll now. Look out. Very good. Dave Van Dyke, you want to read the next paragraph?
No.
Do it, Dave.
Okay.
Just do it.
Okay. Let's see. So I don't have the same book. Can you read the
This World of Separation.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
This world of separation is a world of bodies, which become literally the embodiments of the ego, symbolizing the sin of separation or attack on God for which we feel guilty. It is for this reason the Course states that the world was made as an attack on God. In reality, therefore, the material world is as inherently illusory as the thought of separation that gave it birth. The Course teaches that ideas do not leave their source. Our experience to the contrary, the world exists only as an idea in our split mind, which is not the mind that God created. Therefore, the separated world too cannot have been created by God and does not truly exist.
Anything on that one, Dave?
I don't know. It seems pretty clear to me. I just in my own grapplings with the ego recently, I just am amazed at how sneaky guilt can be, though. I mean, it just seems to permeate a lot of layers, and occasionally I get a very clear sense of direction and comfort, and that's when I join with Jesus or join with the Holy Spirit. But if I'm apart from that presence in any way, then guilt seems to be there automatically. So.
And do you have a sense that you feel it, or do you name it, or I mean, what is that experience like? It's there, but you're not aware of it, or?
Sometimes it's there and I'm feeling it, but I'm not really aware that I'm not part of it. I think it is me. And then then at some point I become conscious that I don't want that feeling, and then I ask for help, and then I can see it in perspective. Then sometimes I'm aware of it as a separate, let's see, how can I say that, entity, so to speak, that they're just ego guilt thoughts climbing around in my mind, and they need to go. So it's always, like all of us, just watching your mind and doing your best to identify moment by moment what's happening, and coming back to a sense of union with our real self, when we can. So
I have this image of little guilt demons in my mind running around feeding on my guilt. Little guilt demons. Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Dave.
sure.
The other line that jumped out at me there is close to the end of the paragraph. Our experience to the contrary, meaning our experience that the world is real, and contrary to that is what the world really isn't. It's not real, and it's coming from a source of my mind. So I remember my mom, another thing I would feel guilty about would say, why are you being so contrary? Well, we're being contrary all the time. We're insisting the world's real. We're telling Jesus all the time. You don't know what you're talking about. This world is real. Guilt is alive and well, but it's in the world. It ain't in me. On the contrary, we're always insisting the world is real. That's what guilt's for. So don't be so contrary, Tim. I don't even know what it meant. Did that actually mean that? Is that a dictionary definition of contrary? I guess it is. Anyway, thanks, Dave. Monica, you want to read, or do you have a book?
I don't have a book, but I have a thought.
Okay, go ahead.
I was thinking about the what we were talking about with the confessions, and also having been brought up Catholic. I thought that if you look at it from a point where it gives us an opportunity to return our mind to God, because whether the priest thought you were, really bad or whatever, it didn't really matter, because you got the opportunity by saying some words that were God-like, like some Hail Marys and some Our Fathers, to return your mind to God. And the same principle is with amends. When you make amends, you're wiping the slate clean so you can return to your sinless self. So I think that these are rudimentary ways of doing it, and they're really old ways of doing it, but they're not so bad because it gives you an opportunity to get back in alignment.
I have this image from one of the movies about Portugal, Mother Mary showing up. Mother Mary would always show up to these kids when they were doing something bad. But in Medjugorje had happened, and in Fatima had happened, and the other places where Mother Mary shows up, the kids are always doing something bad when she shows up. So there's this incredible guilt feeling, like, oh no, I'm really busted now. In Medjugorje, they jumped the fence and they were stealing apples. I think it was in Fatima. They were supposed to be doing the rosary. And instead of saying the whole rosary, they were just, this is even in the movie. And this is an old movie. In the movie, they're going, Hail Mary. Not the whole rest of the prayer, but they just kept saying, Hail Mary, Hail Mary, Hail Mary. And then Mother Mary shows up and busts them. You were not saying the whole prayer. That's an actual story. They were actually busted for not saying the whole Hail Mary prayer. So I hope Stephen did feel better after he said his 3 Hail Marys, and he never did that again with the mashed potatoes. Yeah, thanks, Monica. Yeah, interesting. What time we got? Alrighty. Where are we? Bruce, you want to read a paragraph? Maybe not. Are you tied up in your wires?
Hold on, there we go. How about that? I wasn't sure which Bruce first, and then I realized I was on mute. So okay, sure. Furthermore, the world of separation is a world of scarcity, conflict, suffering, and death. Yeah, that's on a good day, right? In distinct contrast to God's world of abundance, peace, and eternal life. Ours is a world of opposites, contrast, and change. Heaven is unified and changeless. The Course elaborates. And now he's reading from page 220 in the text. The world you see is the delusional system of those made mad by guilt. Look carefully at this world, and you will realize that this is so. For this world is the symbol of punishment, and all the laws that seem to govern it are the laws of death. Children are born into it through pain and in pain. Their growth is attended by suffering, and they learn of sorrow and separation and death. Their minds seem to be trapped in their brain, and its powers to decline if their bodies are hurt. They seem to love, yet they desert and are deserted. They appear to lose what they love, perhaps the most insane belief of all. And their bodies wither and gasp and are laid in the ground and are no more. Not one of them but has thought that God is cruel. And that's certainly one of the more telling and incisive quotes from the course, isn't it? Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
No, I often think that those kind of paragraphs should have a warning sign on them.
Little radioactive symbols on the margins.
Yeah. Or just like danger, warning, danger to the ego.
Really?
Go back, Will Robinson, go back.
Really? Yeah. I guess the follow-on to that last sentence is one of my favorites, which, in first blush, it seems really stark, but it's also actually very comforting, is if this were the real world, God would be cruel. That to me is, I think, actually, when we really think about it in depth, it really is infinitely comforting, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah. Ultimately, yes.
Yeah. Not where we think we are most of the time, but
yeah,
in truth,
it's good news.
It really actually is good news. Yeah.
Good. Thanks, Bruce. Dave, you had something?
Just that this first part of this paragraph, the world you see is a delusional system of those made mad by guilt. Let's see, where does it say? For this world is a symbol of, oh, wait a minute. Children are born into it and in pain, through pain and in pain. The growth is attended by suffering. They learn of sorrow and separation and death. Blah, blah, blah. I'm just wondering, after that, if somebody should have told Jesus, isn't there a little kid somewhere whose balloon you have to go pop? It just seemed, well, anyway, yeah.
And then the sense that was omitted is, and then it goes downhill from there, right?
I was in Peru, and I love going to the churches in any country I was in. And I walked into a church, and there's this little kid. He's only like 5 or 6 years old, and he's praying like crazy. You can just see he's just so, and he's standing in front of either a Jesus statue or a Mother Mary statue, and he's just totally praying to the statue. You can, like thoughts running through my mind, somebody in his family's dying, his mother's sick, they don't have money. I mean, it's third world country, so anything could be going on. But he was so imploring Mother Mary to help him in this situation. And then I thought, and it came to mind when Dave said, don't you have some little kid where you can go pop his balloon? I was like, God knows what happened to that little kid. And I didn't know what to, I wanted to go up and, give him $5 or something. I don't know, but I didn't want to disturb that reverie that he was like, you could just see the whatever saint it was just kind of flowing down over top of him in his hour of need. Kind of like that image I think Monica was talking about. At least there was some sense of a way out, even if we stopped short with it sometimes. Anybody, anything else? Oh, good. AIM.
Yeah, just to kind of play off what Bruce was saying too about that last sentence. I grew up Lutheran, and so I didn't grow up with the Catholic guilt, but I did grow up really being unable to reconcile in my mind this all-loving God when, I'd have to go to confirmation, and I did think he was cruel, because I was like, how can he be all loving when he does all this stuff, right? And so when I finally got to the course and read that God didn't create the world, it was like, oh, now that makes sense to me. So I was really grateful to get to the course, because then now the course is the thing that makes sense, because nothing else ever did to me, at least.
I think my reaction when I heard that for the first time, that the ground was going to open up and swallow us. Like this was heresy. And then, there were people like you, Amy, and certainly Gloria Wapnick was one. When she read that, she was so relieved. And a lot of people did. But that wasn't my experience. But I got that later. This is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. I'm not going to be punished for reading this. This is the way back. Yeah. Thanks, Amy. Yeah. Let's do a breakout. And so I want to talk to each other about, mostly just to bring a few things to the surface, about 2 or 3 things in our lives that we did behaviorally that we thought made us feel guilty. We already know about Stephen and his potatoes. But, other things later on, things you're willing to share. You don't want to go public with stuff that you, probably might not be appropriate to talk about, but a few of our behavioral guilts that we're willing to share in a small group, and conscious guilt. And as we talk about them, certainly be aware that that's just a distraction from what the real guilt is. And all of it's made up. But just to give ourselves a chance to look at some behavioral guilt and how we might be still holding on to that without admitting it's a distraction from what the real guilt is, that's not real either. Does that make sense, sort of, kind of? Anything you're feeling behaviorally guilty about now, yesterday, the day before. If you were mad at me, I don't want to know it. So whatever you might be feeling guilty about, write down a few things, and we'll come back in about 15 minutes. Let me see what I got. 23, 8 groups. All right. Oh. You want it? Yeah. Turn your mics on. Who was telling who some good stuff? Dave, were you telling Jane, or was Jane telling you?
No, Dave was just talking about, I'm leaving you, Jane. I'm going back to, you're not good enough. I'm going back to the main room. And then off he went. So I hope he feels guilty about that. I do. I hope he feels real guilty. Wasn't nice. No, I will not accept that.
You won't accept. Well, I'll see. I'll see your guilt and raise you.
Oh, that's good.
I'm kidding. No, no. We're just trying to figure out why there weren't 3 people in our group, and
you were just trying to figure it out. Don't put the
okay, I was trying to figure it out. Good. This is a hard room.
They don't call it break out for nothing.
Yeah, no,
you will be broken.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Oh, that's good. Besides all those things you just did, Dave, is there anything else you feel guilty about?
Yeah, actually, let's see. There's a few things, like I wasn't as present for my dad when he was passing away as nearly as I could have been. Now, granted, they're my folks lived in California at the time, and here I am in Colorado. So it's not like I could, just pop in kind of thing. But one time while I was there, I just, it didn't hit me till later, but I just was aware that I could have been a lot more present with him. And I think he was in a lot of fear. And I really didn't realize, and I really could have been probably a lot more help to him than I was. So yeah, that gets me every once in a while.
Sure.
So anyway.
Yeah.
And
parents are a big one. What we did with parents are not big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think too. I have the same feeling about with my mother. With my father, he just died instantly. So he was, he just had an aneurysm and was gone. And I wasn't even in the state at the time. But I didn't feel, well, I don't know if I felt guilty about it or not, to tell you the truth. I'm sure that I did, because he died on Thanksgiving Day and I probably should have been there, but so I hear you, and I hear what Tim says, that I think when we look back or we're feeling guilty and we're not sure, it often comes from parents, that we didn't do with our parents.
Yeah. Or really any relationship, could have been a friend, could have been, a classmate, could have been, anything. Yeah.
In my using drug days, my mother, it took her about, after she found out she had cancer, it took about her 6 months or so for her to pass away. But and just as you were telling that story, Dave, what I didn't do actually came to mind. I realized I really need to work on that with my mom and with Jesus. It was her birthday, and she went into the hospital for her first cancer treatment. This was like in February, and I'm on my way there. I finally made it there, but on the way I stopped and got high. Probably because I was scared to death, but but I did stop and get high. I made it finally, but just the guilt over, like, I had to get high before I went to see my mom in the hospital.
Sure.
Yeah, and I was talking with somebody about a parent situation this morning, and as I was trying to suggest something, I remember asking Ken Wapnick at a seminar once. I was worried about my cat, because my cat had disappeared for a week and it came back, and I was afraid if it happened again, I was going to freak out and lose it, because I lost it for the week the cat was gone. I felt really guilty. And so I was kind of preparing for the next time that might happen. And I asked Ken, what should I do? And he said, see Jesus holding the cat right now. And so I think I can do that with my mom. I can see Jesus holding my mom, or at least strangers on the road. They're walking down the road together. I can do that with both my parents. And so I suggested that to the person I was talking to today, to do that with, maybe with her parents, because she was having, one of her parents had just died, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, but yeah, I think that's a really helpful way to begin to unravel that the horror. I mean, on any kind of good normal day, it's not a good thing not to go see your mom on her birthday when she just went into for cancer treatment, because I had to stop and get high first. I mean, that's probably not a good thing. I mean, in time and space, nobody would argue with that. However, if that's just a distraction, and if that's just me not being willing to be close to my mom right now, much less close to Jesus, I'd still be using that as an excuse to keep Jesus away, to keep my mom away, keep my own, our true self out of my awareness. So all these things are just, I think, classrooms for fessing up to I'm really feeling, just not too far under the surface. And then am I willing to go beyond that in the process? Yeah.
Yeah. Undoubtedly you were you were freaked out about your mom, and you probably the emotions you were feeling had such a cutting edge to them. You needed to dull it a little bit, probably.
Yeah, I blamed it on my addiction, but it wasn't that. It was just the fear more than anything.
Sure.
My addiction to fear, not addiction to whatever drug I was using, but yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I found that the being aware that you're with Jesus or with the Holy Spirit, that it's a conscious presence, that you're aware of that presence is the most healing thing for guilt. Not to say, if I can do it once or twice a day, then that's a good day. But it's not, there's just sometimes there's just seems to be a lot in the way, and I don't know, but I think over time it gets easier. And then sometimes these things come up for healing, that they come up in your mind, and you're like, wow, where was all that light I was feeling recently? It's like if you put a drop of black ink into a perfectly clear glass of water, that that black ink just gets in there, and pretty soon it doesn't have to be a very big drop, but it can occlude the clarity that you were feeling. And anyway,
I know Ken says be vigilant for your journey. Be vigilant for your journey to the way home, which is saying be vigilant for the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. Sure.
I was thinking about that line that we were looking at last night in this beginning class on forgiveness and Jesus, where Ken said he became aware he was running away from Jesus for the first 30 years of his life. Like, the only reason you run from something is because you're afraid of it. It just was hard to even begin to even imagine Ken was afraid of Jesus for 30 years. Like all of us are.
All of us, yeah.
And afraid of that, afraid of that connection, afraid of that presence. I love, I use that word presence a lot, but I really liked when you said it's a conscious presence, like that presence of Jesus is really conscious of me.
Right.
Yeah. And we're conscious. There's just an entirely different feeling to your, instead of perception, then you're seeing with vision, I think, because when I feel that connection, then I don't feel that the guilt or the whatever it is has any power. Right, it doesn't. And well, anyway, yeah, that's it. And to know that really that's God's will for us, and that when we recognize that our will and God's will are the same, then we go, oh yeah, maybe I'm holy. At least it's an idea, and to consider. And once I've noticed that once I recognize or admit to our wills being the same, it somehow becomes a lot easier to let God and Jesus in. That's I'm still trying to sort a lot of stuff out, because for quite a while now I've been kind of chugging through some pretty heavy duty stuff, it seems like, and it's not fun sometimes. It's not fun ever.
That's right. I have to point out to you Catholics, though, is that Catholics do not have the edge on guilt.
Oh, yes, we do.
Special guilt, huh?
Oh, remember, we all came in with it.
Dave, were you Catholic?
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't think you were.
Methodist.
I have a feeling about the Catholics. I don't know what it is, but I didn't think you were. You just said, not that it's good or bad, you just didn't have that feel.
Right.
You didn't have that particular aura of guilt about you.
I do understand what you're talking about. There's a sense, the Catholic mindset creates a sense of, well, I don't know. It's hard to give it words, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it says the best way I can phrase it right now, it has a certain color to it, and you don't have that color of guilt. You got other kinds of guilt, but you don't have that particular color of Catholic guilt, whatever that color is.
Okay.
Sometimes I regretted not being Jewish just because I wanted to blame my Jewish mother, the Jewish mother guilt. I thought that would have been exceptional guilt.
Yeah, the Jews put how did it go? The Jews put the guilt on the Catholics and the Catholics reciprocated.
Oh.
And put it on them.
Oh, yeah. There was a deli across from the ARE Foundation in Virginia Beach, and it was called the Jewish Mother. I love that place. Food was so comforting.
The ARE, what was that?
Oh, Association of Research and Enlightenment, the Edgar Cayce Center in Virginia Beach. Yeah, right. Yeah, that was a holy place in those days.
The first place the course was given to.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, really?
I had no idea at the time. Right?
And it was stolen
from the library.
Oh, really?
And then it got stolen from the Library of Congress.
They brought it back.
They did?
To the ARE library. They sold it for a few days. The Endeavor Academy. I think Lynn was part of it when she was. In fact, it was her ex-husband that went and stole it. That's a good story, isn't it?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's a good story. I like that.
So it's the ARE. I can't remember. Is that the year text then or not?
Yeah, that was pretty sure that was their text, and then the Endeavor Academy put it out online or whatever. Yeah, all that stuff happened. Anyway, we're gonna go back to the big main session. Thank you guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, here they come.
Walking down the street.
Get the funniest looks from.
Everyone they meet.
All right. Wow.
We're back.
We are. Are we resurrected or are we still in guilt? We're done with guilt.
There's only two of us. Did all of you have only two?
No. You must have needed special help, David. Who were you with? Another David?
Yeah, he was. So.
Oh my God! Did you help him, Dave? I hope you helped David delicately.
I think he helped me.
Bundled up to David in one little package.
Dave on Dave, man, that sounds like a book, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Or at least a good movie. Any comments from the session, either Dave?
Well, I like the sessions because you can get a little bit of feeling for the people that are in the group, their backgrounds and why they are where they are and how they got into the course and why. And the whole issue of guilt. Of course, we spent a lot of time talking about guilt because that was a subject.
Yeah, and I think that, we kind of all share this same beginning where guilt, that's just from a very early age. And then through the course, we realize that everything we do in our life is set up to maintain this guilt, and, so the little penny candy you stole from the corner store when you were 8 or 9 years old, that was all part of the plan. It's just, it's kind of neat to step back from it all and to see how it all has played out and is supposed to play out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was thinking about that. So, I'm like 5, 6 years old. This is pre-communion, having to go to confession. And you would see those giant with the heavy drapes. Some of them had doors on them, the confessional. And we thought there were bodies in there. We thought they were like, that's where they stored the recently dead bodies. Or it's in these long coffin-like things. And then we were too scared to go up and peek inside to see what was there. I can't remember whether we looked or not, but it must have been really disappointing to not see a dead body in there. in the Catholic confessional. Maya?
Yeah, I wonder if Lynn Altman would be willing to share her epiphany that Bruce and I both felt really merited being shared with the whole group.
Oh, well, I just was thinking about that thing about fishes in the fishbowl, and they don't know what water is because that's their medium, and guilt is my medium. It is really literally the way in which I live, move, and have my being. It was, yeah.
And without it, we'll die.
Yeah, it was really, it is living and breathing. I mean, it was shocking to realize how, I guess I've tried to keep it as an intellectual concept, but that just brought it home for me. So thanks.
Wow. Thanks for sharing, Lynn. I'll never get that out of my head now. No, that's good. Thanks. Bruce, did you have something to add?
Yeah, well, I really appreciated that and could relate in that, it just seems like we that's really the unconscious, unfounded guilt that really is the ego thought system, unless we ask for help to question. What I do want to know, though, is if you pull back the little slider in the confessional, is Stephen Colbert there? Is that who you see? You'd have to have seen his skit with that to appreciate it. But.
There is a great YouTube video about 5 minutes long with the third rock from the sun guy. What's his name? John.
Lithgow.
Anyway, what is it?
Lithgow.
Yeah, John Lithgow, and he's the priest, and the dog comes to confessional, and he's hearing the dog. Oh, I loved it. It's really good. If you've ever been through a confessional experience, you'll love the dog with John Lithgow as the priest. Yeah, check that one out. Maurice?
Yeah, I have to remind myself that yes, I have guilt, but also that it's the same experience when I'm feeling victimized, right? I mean, I can more relate to feeling like a victim than, at least that's more conscious. But I want to remind all of us, I'm around people that are Catholic, and that this coming week is Holy Week. And so I want to take down, I wanted to take Jesus down off the cross all week long, and therefore myself. Just a reminder to me.
Very good. Well, you got a job. He's nailed on there pretty good. Yeah, good. Thanks, Maurice.
Speaking of Holy Week, that reminded me of a story of a little kid that was sick on Palm Sunday, so he couldn't go to church. When the family got back from church after Palm Sunday, they were all carrying these palms. And the little boy said, "What are those for?" He said, "Well, they waved palms when Jesus walked by." He said, "The one day I couldn't make it, he shows up."
Oh, that's serious guilt. That's good. Oh, thanks, David. Let's re-invite Jesus back in, just in case we might have dropped him along the way. I wanted to look at this is on page 87 in the manual. 87 in the manual. In the back of the book, this is number 5 on Jesus, and paragraph 5 is this is one of the few places in the course where they talk about Jesus in the third person, like he's not really writing this. Actually, he's writing this, but he's kind of talking about himself as he does it. So paragraph 5 on page 87 in the manual, he says, is he the Christ? Meaning Jesus. He's talking about himself like he's somebody else. Is he the Christ? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, along with you. His little life on earth was not enough to teach the mighty lesson that he learned for all of you. He will remain with you to lead you from the hell you made to go back to God. And when you join your will with his, your sight will be his vision, for the eyes of Christ are then shared. Walking with him is just as natural as walking with a brother whom you knew since you were born, for such indeed he is. Some bitter idols have been made of him who would be only brother to the world. Forgive him your illusions, and behold how dear a brother he would be to you, for he will set your mind at rest at last and carry it with you unto your God. And as a closing meditation, Lynn, you want to read that last italicized part on page 88, please? Lynn Corona.
Yet still it is his lesson, most of all, that he would have you learn, and it is this: there is no death, because the Son of God is like his Father. Nothing you can do can change eternal love. Forget your dreams of sin and guilt and come with me instead to share the resurrection of God's Son, and bring with you all those whom he has sent to you to care for as I care for you.
Thanks. And the finches are singing. That's really good. Wow. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Always good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely lesson. Lovely class.
Great class. Thank you.
Love y'all. Bye.